one of the coolest pieces of research that I've seen in the last month or so has just arrived. So it's from NORC at the University of Chicago. They seem to be affiliated with the Associated Press. There we go, the news agency, newswire agency. So they've done a study on the actual usage patterns of artificial intelligence in the US, which is helpful. Let's see. So it's a relatively small poll. It's only 1,437 adults aged 18 or older. I'd like to see that with a larger sample size because it's relatively small. And I'd also wonder who they've got to answer the survey. Are these people self-selecting into the survey, or is this a truly random sample? This is not a scientific paper. This is a journalistic survey, but still, it would be nice to have those assurances. But what we are seeing is 60% of people are using AI in order to search for information. So basically using it as a replacement for Google. This kind of makes sense. It is not the best use of AI. In fact, it's quite a wasteful use because you can often find the information using Google with a lower energy output than if you use ChatGPT. But I see search as a bit of a gateway drug into using artificial intelligence, because when you realize that you can use ChatGPT to get answers from artificial intelligence instead of from searching around on Google, having to click through to websites, having to get past the adverts, having to ignore highly overly SEO optimized websites in order to find what you're actually looking for. A lot of people realize, now I can actually get a better, faster answer by using ChatGPT. So that's the shift that we are seeing. All this week and last week, I've been dunking on Google playfully, but also it's a bit worrying. I think Google is a relic of the past, and whether or not they can pivot into the new AI era is yet to be seen. I've had a lot of people on YouTube videos tell me that I'm very wrong here, which is fine. A lot of people are saying that, oh no, Google will be fine because they'll go from search into artificial intelligence. They're doing that already, and they will be absolutely fine. They're going to be the forefront of the leaders. But again, search, which is their main business, is about 60-70+% of their revenue, and it's at a 70% profit margin. They make a huge amount of cash from search. So Google has to replace hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue from search with a new business unit, which is artificial intelligence. Nobody is making that much money using AI yet. So regardless of what you think about Google, regardless of what kind of business transition, this is a huge thing that Google need to pull off in order to continue to survive. So I had people saying, oh, they have cloud computing and stuff like that. Cloud makes up 13% of their revenue, as opposed to 70 or 60, 70%. So yes, they have these other business units. They have many business units. They have telephones, and they have the operating systems. They have many things that they make money from, YouTube, but they pale in comparison to search. So what this study is showing is that a lot of people are using ChatGPT or AI specifically to search for information. If they are finding the information on AI, what does this mean? They're not going to Google. So 60% of Americans, according to the survey, are now using ChatGPT to find information. I know it's not 100%, but considering that ChatGPT, the public version, so 3.5 onwards, has only been out for when did it come out? November? So 2.5 years. For a technology to change people's behavior to such an extent that 60% of them now use AI in order to find information in just 2.5 years, that is a huge shift in behavior. And generally with technologies, it takes a long time for people to get used to and adapt new patterns of usage. So this is probably the big takeaway, that 60% of people are using it to search for information. That doesn't mean they're not using Google as well, but if ChatGPT continues to give better search results or information than Google, people are going to use ChatGPT instead of Google. And 30% say they have never used it. So that's interesting. That means they just haven't used AI to search for information. My guess would be they just haven't used AI, full stop. And when they use it and they realize, oh, this is better than Google, they'll move over to it as well. And then 10% say they don't know. So they don't know if they've searched for information using AI. I don't know what that means. 40% use it for coming up with ideas, but 52% do not. So we have a drop off basically. So coming up with ideas, work tasks, helping to write emails, creating and editing images, entertainment, shopping, and companionship all the way at the bottom, with 16% of Americans have used it for companionship, 75% have not. So with all of these things, I would say it's about acclimatizing and it's about changing our behaviors. So the more we use AI, the more we realize what it can be used for. So a lot of the time, my job when I go in and give workshops to businesses, there's the temptation to jump to the really cool stuff. Oh, you can make videos, and oh, did you know you could do automations and you can set up these agents, etc. The really cool, the sexy stuff. Most people aren't there yet. They need to be worked through the stages of AI, worked through the levels of AI. And the first stage is basically using it for information retrieval. So using it like Google, replacing your search habits with generative AI habits, and then building from there. Because as soon as you start to use AI on a daily basis, that's when you start to realize, oh, I could use it for these other problems. You might be using it generally for looking things up, and then you realize, oh, my kid's birthday party is coming up and they really like Minecraft, and I've got 12 kids and I need to come up with some ideas for games. Now, you could go to Google and use Google to find people who've done something similar. Or you realize, oh, actually, I'm going to ChatGPT. I can put in my exact specifications and I can come up with ideas. So that's like the next level. And 40% of Americans are using AI for coming up with ideas. 52% are not. And then from there, it just cascades as you realize it can help with more and more in your everyday life. And that's how people level up and skill up in artificial intelligence. And this is what I always say when I give talks. Even though I'm being paid to go and teach people, I will often say to them, look, my job is just to open your eyes. You are going to have to go away and start using this stuff on a daily basis. And you're going to work out what is useful for you personally. So when I give workshops, I'll often stagger them. So I'll come in, give a basic workshop, get people started so they feel familiar, comfortable with AI, and then come back in a month or two. And by that point, they've been using it so much that they have questions. They're like, oh, how do I use projects? Or I'm having specific difficulties generating this type of image, et cetera, et cetera. They'll have specific problems that we can then work through. The other salient point here is 16% of people in America are using AI for companionship, which it's the lowest number here. So it is one of the least used uses of artificial intelligence. But again, in just 2.5 years, 16%, which is what? That's one in, can't do the math, 1 in 8, no, 1 in 7. Yeah, 1 in 6 point, whatever. 1 in 7, roughly, Americans are using artificial intelligence for companionship. Yes, it's a small number right now, but when we put this into the perspective of human beings and human relationships and how we conduct our daily lives, that's a lot of people. That is a lot of people who are using artificial intelligence for companionship right now. And this is adults age 18 and over. I know that most users of AI for companionship are younger. It's teenagers. So this is a very interesting trend. I'm surprised that it's even 16%. There are also going to be people who won't admit to this. There will be some people who are like, yes, absolutely, my best friend is an AI, or I'm in a romantic relationship with an AI. You see quite a lot of that on Reddit. Whereas there will be other people who use AI for companionship, but either don't recognize it as that, or they don't want to say that they use it for companionship. So I think this number is probably higher. And regardless, 16% or 1 in 6, 1 in 7 is quite a lot of people already. So that is a trend that I think is going to continue to grow. I wouldn't be surprised if they run this in a year, this will be 25+%, and it's going to keep on growing because companionship is such a wide usage of artificial intelligence. And the other things here is, unsurprisingly, younger people are using AI a lot more than older people. This is normal with any new technology. Younger people tend to be less stuck in their ways and they're more eager to experiment. So younger people are using AI a lot more, by about 10 to 20% roughly in every single area. Companionship is relatively close. So all adults is 16%, and companionship between 18 to 29, so young adults, is 25%. Okay, 25% is a lot. This is, if you want to look at this report, is if you look up NORC, young adults are leading the way in AI adoption, then you'll be able to find the data. This study came out yesterday on the 29th, so you can dig into the data as well. Canadian sesquipedalian. I think I'm saying that right. Sesquipedalian. I forgot what that word means. Six-legged? You'll have to tell me, Canadian sesquipedalian. You're giving me a challenge early in the morning trying to pronounce words like that. So saying I only use chat and Perplexity for news. So I think this is commonly the case. Only a year and a half ago, using AI for news was difficult because it would insert hallucinations, it would not have information within its training data, etc. But as soon as they added search capability, the ability for AI to go out and find that news elsewhere, it became a no-brainer because it could find news that was relevant to what you were looking for. So even today, every time I sit down to do a live, I will search for AI news. I will often search on Google just to see what's going on in the news section, but it will tend to only give me the larger sources. So it's going to give me Associated Press, TechCrunch, BBC, etc. I find that using ChatGPT or Perplexity allows me to tailor that a bit more and to find information from other sources. So not just the ones that are SEO optimized, but potentially sources that are providing more up-to-date news, but they're just not large media corporations. Perplexity in particular, this was the killer app. The reason why Perplexity managed to gain a foothold was because it could source and it could give a lot more information about where it was getting its results from. Whereas ChatGPT, at least for the first year or so, GPT 3.5, GPT 4, it would just give you the information and not necessarily give you a source, which made it harder to trust. So Perplexity were the ones who cracked that, and they're like, no, we're going to source everything. So every time you put in a search, it would give you 10, 20 different sources. You could follow back and get that information. Now ChatGPT does that as well, especially if you're using the search functionality or the research functionality, which makes it perfect for news as well. This is a pattern that we see again and again, where basically other companies will build a functionality. ChatGPT won't have that functionality, but it can come in and eat their lunch. So, for example, ChatGPT agents. I don't personally think that ChatGPT agents is better than Manus.im, which has been my go-to agent for the last 6 months or so. I think Manus is still better, but it doesn't matter because ChatGPT are the largest in terms of user base, and they have the distribution. So they can watch what Manus are doing. They can watch what Perplexity are doing. They can watch what the image generation software tech are doing, and then they can just copy it. They can say, okay, that looks cool. People seem to like that. Yoink. I think they're about to do that with AI avatars as well. So we had a leak of the GPT-5 interface, GPT-5 Prime. We don't know if it's true or not, but one of the drop downs in the tool menu was video chat, which I think is probably going to be the ability to talk with an AI avatar in a similar way that we do with, or you can do with Grok's Annie, which is a visual avatar that you can talk to. I think ChatGPT is about to get a face or a couple of faces, which is going to be interesting. But again, that is ChatGPT looking at Character AI, which is the third largest consumer artificial intelligence application by users, looking at Character AI and saying, lots of people seem to like that. We'll do that too. Yoink. And they will continue to do this, and I do not blame them. It's a very smart way to do business. Ken Clark saying Google would get better revenue if searches were more direct and simple. So this is the difficulty with running a search model. So Google is primarily an advertising company. It's not really a tech company. Yes, they have a lot of tech underlying it. They have a lot of algorithms. They worked out how to index and display the information from the internet, but they are primarily an advertising company. And there were ones before that, search engines like Yahoo, for example. So Yahoo, one of the reasons they ceased to exist, or no, sorry, they do still exist, that's mean. They ceased to exist as the largest search engine because they started to allow paid listings, but they did not mark them as paid, which meant anyone could pay to play and be at the top of Yahoo. And for users, that eroded trust because they did not know that was an advert. One of the big things when Google came in was they said, no, we're going to be fully transparent. We're going to make sure people know if this is a paid listing rather than an organic listing. An organic listing is the free listings, basically. So this was one of the big promises of Google up front. Over the years, because search brings in such a lot of money for them, it's their main cash cow. It's not the other technology, is advertising. That's where they make the money. Because of that, they have made it harder and harder to tell what's an advert and what is not. So they do small tweaks, small changes that people don't notice, like making the word ad, making that smaller, putting it in gray, making it a bit translucent, etc. Just making it less and less visible, because that means more people will click through. Basically, they're tricked into clicking through, and therefore Google makes more money. So it's always going to be a balance for Google, because their product is us. Their product are the people who come to Google and give their attention and use Google. Their customer are the advertisers. So they need to balance it out. If they lean too heavily in favor of the customer and blatantly hide adverts or try and trick the people who are searching, then they will lose the trust of the user, and we will stop using Google, and the search volume falls, and therefore the money they can make from the advertisers, from the customer, will fall as well. If they go too far and they try to please the user, the person who is searching, the querier, then and provide the right answer for free. So if the searches were more direct and simple, as you're saying, Kent Clark, this would be great for the user. This is bad for the person who is advertising. So it's bad for their customer. So Google have always been in this balance between, okay, how do we make sure both parties are happy and we sit in between and make money from that transaction? What I've noticed increasingly is, and I think this is one of the reasons why people are flooding to ChatGPT for direct answers, is when you go onto Google looking for a piece of information, it is increasingly more difficult just to find that information. It's increasingly difficult to get that direct and simple website, as you were saying, Kent. There's too much SEO, so search engine optimization. So you see things like BuzzFeed or whatever at the top when they probably shouldn't be. There are adverts, there are landing pages, squeeze pages. There are all of these different forms of digital marketing, which I am also guilty of. This is what I do, which can vie for your attention. And it means you're not necessarily getting the best information if you're just looking for information. So I personally, when I want to actually find something, I'll often add the word Reddit on the end of my search result, because then at least I know I can get an answer from an expert in the field who's on Reddit, and it will be a person, and it's not going to be someone trying to sell me something. Whereas the rest of Google, the rest of the internet, is basically sales pages or pages that pull you in to get advertising revenue. That's why lots of people are going to ChatGPT, because so many people have gamed Google, and Google has become such a, I was about to say a rude word, it's become such a mess that we cannot just get the information that we're looking for. We cannot just find the camera lens I want to buy. It becomes too complicated on Google. Whereas you go to ChatGPT and you ask, hey, I'm looking for a camera lens I can use in a small room like this, blah, blah, blah. I want depth of field. What can you recommend? And it will just give you the answer. So much easier. So I think this is also why people have moved to ChatGPT, not just because it's simpler and better and faster, but because Google have shot themselves in the foot by allowing their results to be polluted with SEO optimized pages and adverts as well. So we'll see. But again, I'm very bearish on Google moving forward.